Thomas Hagen thought he had 30 seconds to freedom. One shotgun blast, run to the door, disappear into New York streets. What he didn't know was that Bumpy Johnson was standing 10 feet behind him with a loaded .38, watching every move. The 21st of February, 1965. The Audubon Ballroom. 400 people came to hear Malcolm X speak. Only one came to kill him. 3 days earlier, Malcolm's house had exploded in flames. Molotov cocktails through the bedroom window. His wife Betty and their 4 daughters barely escaped with their lives. The girls were standing in the freezing street in their nightgowns, crying, covered in soot, watching their home burn. Everything they owned turned to ash in minutes. I found Malcolm the next morning at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital, sitting in the waiting room while doctors checked his daughters for smoke inhalation. He looked older than his 39 years. The weight of knowing your own people want you dead ages a man fast. I sat beside him without invitation. "Give me 48 hours, I said. "The men who did this won't see Wednesday." Malcolm was staring at the floor, exhausted. When he spoke, his voice was steady but sad. "If you do that, I become everything they say I am, a hypocrite, hiding behind a gangster's gun. You'd be alive. I'd be dead inside." He turned to face me. "I've spent 10 years preaching that violence breeds violence. I can't abandon that the moment I am scared. Bumpy, they tried to burn my babies alive last night. You think I am not tempted? You think I don't want blood?" His voice cracked slightly. "But if I let you kill for me, I destroy everything I've built. Violence for violence. Blood for blood. That is the cycle I am trying to break." I respected that answer. Hated it, but respected it. "Then let me protect you 24/7. My best men armed watching." Malcolm shook his head. "You are a dead man, Malcolm. You know that." "Maybe, but I'll die clean. I'll die standing." That conversation haunted me for 3 days. Because I knew Malcolm was right, I also knew he was going to die for being right. I was there that Sunday afternoon, not in the front row, not with the dignitaries. I positioned myself against a pillar in row 5. Perfect sight lines, multiple exits. When you've survived as long as I have, you never sit anywhere without knowing exactly how you are getting out. The ballroom was packed. Families, students, old women who remembered Malcolm when he was just another street hustler from Roxbury. Young men who saw him as the voice of a new America. Good people. Malcolm's people. But 3 faces didn't belong. 2 rows apart, 2 still. Not listening to the opening speakers. Just waiting. I'd been watching them since they walked in. The way they positioned themselves, professional spacing, clear exit routes. The one on the left kept checking his watch. The one on the right had his coat buttoned despite the warm room. Both were trying too hard to look casual. The one in the center was Thomas Hagen, Nation of Islam enforcer. I recognized that dead look in his eyes, the stillness of a man who'd already decided to kill. My hand moved under my jacket, felt the familiar weight of my revolver. I could have ended it right there. 2 quick shots. Hagen and his backup, dead before they hit the floor. But 400 witnesses meant chaos. Panic, stampede, innocent people crushed. And Malcolm would just die tomorrow. Instead, you can't stop fanatics by killing one. They're a disease. You have to cut out the whole infection. At 2:40, the moderator's voice carried through the ballroom. "Brothers and sisters, I present to you Malcolm X." The crowd rose, applauded. Malcolm walked onto that stage in a simple, dark suit. No security, no bodyguards. Just a man and his message. "Assalamu alaikum," Malcolm said. "Walaikum assalam." 400 voices responded. Everyone sat. I never took my eyes off Hagen. I watched him lean forward. Watched his hand move inside his coat, then chaos. Someone in the middle section jumped up, shouting about pickpockets. Classic distraction, make everyone turn. Create confusion. In that moment, the killer moves. Hagen stood. His coat fell open. The sawed-off shotgun appeared. Brutal weapon, designed to destroy. My .38 was already in my hand. Finger on the trigger, 10 feet. Easy shot, clean angle. That is when I saw her. A little girl, white ribbons in her pigtails. maybe 6 years old. In the confusion, she had climbed onto her chair, leaning into the aisle to see the commotion, directly between me and Hagen. If I fired now, the bullet would go through her before it ever reached him. My mind calculated angles like a machine. Step left, blocked by standing people. Step right, same problem. Climb over chairs, too slow. By the time I repositioned, Hagen would have fired and vanished, the little girl twisted in her seat, looking back at me with curious brown eyes. She had no idea she was standing between life and death. No idea that a killer was rising behind her with a sawed-off shotgun. No idea that the man 10 feet away from her was about to make the hardest choice of his life. 30 years in these streets had taught me one rule. When someone threatens what you protect, you eliminate the threat. No hesitation, no moral calculations. But this child changed everything. She wasn't part of the game. She was innocent in a way that Malcolm and I had forgotten how to be. That is when Malcolm turned, not toward Hagen, toward me, like he'd known all along. I'd be there for 2 seconds that felt like hours our eyes met. Malcolm saw the gun in my hand, saw the desperation on my face, saw the little girl between us, innocent, oblivious, leaning into the aisle in her brown Sunday dress. Malcolm understood everything in that moment. He knew I could pull that trigger. Knew the bullet would tear through that child before reaching Hagen. He was silently asking me a question no man should ever have to answer. Is your life worth hers? Malcolm had spent 10 years preaching that one life wasn't more valuable than another. That children were sacred. That violence in the name of justice was still violence. Now he had to prove it with a choice. Malcolm shook his head slowly, deliberately. Then he smiled. Not fear. Not panic, acceptance. He mouthed 3 words. I die standing. My finger froze on the trigger. The man in front of me shifted, blocking my view entirely. I shoved forward, trying to see. Boom. The shotgun blast was deafening. By the time my sight cleared, Malcolm was stumbling backward, blood spreading across his chest. 2 more men rushed the stage with pistols, firing. 16 bullets found Malcolm X. He fell. I stood frozen, gun in hand, unable to save the one man who mattered most. The ballroom erupted. Screaming, crying, mothers throwing themselves over children. Thomas Hagen turned and ran for the exit, shotgun still smoking in his hands, 30 seconds from freedom. Something inside me snapped, not explosive, cold, lethal. I couldn't fire my gun. Too many people in the crossfire. 1 shot and innocent people die. So I ran, closing the distance. 15 feet, 10. 5. Hagen reached the exit door, hand on the handle. I lunged low, swept my leg forward, hooked his ankle with perfect precision. Hagen's momentum carried him forward, but his feet went backward. He crashed face first onto the ballroom floor. The shotgun flew from his hands, spinning across the polished wood. I kicked it hard, sent it sliding under overturned chairs. Gone. Hagen scrambled to his knees, wild-eyed, reaching for the pistol in his waistband. I grabbed his wrist, twisted. The small revolver clattered away. Then I did something unexpected. I didn't kill him, didn't beat him, didn't pull my own gun. Dead men don't talk. Hagen needed to say who gave the order, who funded it, who sanctioned it. More importantly, this man took Malcolm from the people. So I was going to give him back to the people. He grabbed Hagen by the collar, lifted him halfway up, then shoved him backward into the surging crowd. 20 men rushed forward. They just watched Malcolm X get murdered, and now the killer was right there. The first punch came from an old man in a church suit. His fist connected with Hagen's jaw with surprising force. Then a young father, whose daughter was crying behind him, threw his weight into Hagen's ribs. More hands grabbed, pulled, beat. These weren't hardened criminals. They were teachers, laborers, mothers, good people who'd just watched evil destroy something precious. I stepped back, watching them transform. Grief turned to rage. Rage turned to justice. Raw, immediate justice that no court could deliver. "This is him," someone shouted. This is the one who killed Malcolm. Hagen tried to speak, tried to explain. But words don't matter when you are holding a smoking gun over a dead prophet's body. The crowd pressed closer, tighter, angrier. I leaned close to the mob, voice low but carrying. Don't let him breathe. Don't let him run. Make him answer for what he did. The crowd understood. They pinned Hagen to the floor like a wild animal. Police sirens wailed outside, getting closer. Blood ran from his nose, his mouth. He was beaten, terrified, but alive. Exactly how I wanted him. I walked calmly toward the side exit, through the chaos, through the crying, through the smoke still hanging in the air. But I wasn't calm inside. My heart was pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. Malcolm's blood was on my jacket. His last words were echoing in my head. I reached the exit door and paused for 1 second. Behind me, the ballroom was pure pandemonium. Women screaming, children crying, men shouting, and somewhere in that chaos, Malcolm X lay dead on a stage where he'd come to speak about hope. I should have saved him, should have found another way, should have moved faster, thought smarter, been better. But Malcolm had made his choice, and he'd asked me to respect it, even if it killed me inside. By the time police flooded through the front doors, I was 3 blocks away, disappearing into Harlem streets like I'd never been there at all. Every step took me further from the man I'd failed to save and closer to the men I was going to kill. Behind me, Thomas Hagen was on the ground, bleeding, beaten, but alive. Alive to stand trial. Alive to rot in prison. Alive to know he failed. Alive to know Malcolm X died standing. Malcolm was pronounced dead at Columbia Presbyterian at 3:30 p.m., 39 years old. Gone that night. I sat in St. Philip's Church, still wearing my blood-stained jacket. The old priest found me there an hour later. I was 10 feet away, I told him. I could have stopped it, but there was a little girl in the line of fire. So you chose the child's life over Malcolm's? Malcolm chose it, I said. He looked at me, saw my gun, and told me to let him go. The priest was quiet for a long moment. Malcolm lived his entire life preparing to die for his beliefs. You didn't take that from him, you honored it. Honoring it didn't bring him back. My hands clenched into fists. I could have moved faster, could have found another angle, could have done something, but I froze and watched him die. You gave him exactly what he asked for, the right to die on his own terms. Not many men have that courage. Not many men would have respected it. I stood up, buttoned my jacket over the bloodstains. Hagen's alive. The crowd beat him, but he'll live to stand trial. And the others? My expression went cold. There were 3 shooters. Hagen's in custody. The other 2 ran. Will they escape? My voice was ice. They won't. The priest understood. Vengeance won't heal this wound. Maybe not, but it is all I have left to give him. Thomas Hagen thought he had 30 seconds to escape justice. Instead, he got a lifetime in prison to think about what he'd done. The other 2 shooters who escaped that day, they never made it 6 months. Harlem has a long memory. Malcolm X died standing just like he wanted, and I made sure the world remembered that. Sometimes the hardest thing a man with a gun can do is not pull the trigger. Sometimes the bravest thing a killer can do is let someone die on their own terms. That is not in the history books, but it should be. If this story of honor, sacrifice, and impossible choices moved you, drop a like and hit subscribe. What would you have done in that ballroom? Tell me in the comments below.